Everybody make the silliest face you can as soon as we start recording. Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 1 of Travel Talks from the Wander Network. I am your host, Shannon Kittner.
And I am Kellie Griot, here with the Wonder Network as well, and excited for today's discussion.
Yes, today we have some special guests with us. We have Kellie, who is the Director of Sales for TTC Tour Brands. So welcome, Kellie. We're excited to have you.
Thanks, Shannon. I'm excited to be here.
Yes, and we have Amber, who is actually one of our travel advisors with the Wander Network. She owns her own company called Wanderlust Way Travel Agency. And Amber, you just recently went on a fam trip with the TTC Tour Brands to Peru. So we're going to talk about that later, but welcome.
Hello.
Awesome. And today our topic is sustainable travel. And I know this is an important topic for all of us. Especially Kellie, with establishing the Wander Network, we were talking about the importance of sustainable travel with our agency and how much that means to us as well. So,
Oh, for sure. And just even, and Shannon knows, and everyone I think knows at this point, how important culture and history is for me. And when we travel, how our clients can experience that in the most authentic way possible. So I'm excited to dive in for sure.
yeah, absolutely. And on that topic, I want to kind of transition Kellie over to you, the other Kellie. Okay, we're going to have to figure this out today. So, in what ways does sustainability mean to the TTC Tour Brands?
So, when it comes to the Travel Corporation, sustainability is really an area that we've been focused on for quite some time. And it's definitely an area that we feel we are leaders in the industry. It's so important to ensure that we're making a positive impact on the places that we go. And preserving these places for future generations to come. So, what we do through our three main pillars, which are the people that we encounter, preserving the cultures, as well as the planet, ensuring that we're making a positive impact everywhere that we go, and ensuring that we're making a positive impact on the wildlife as well. And we do that through our Make Travel Matter experiences. So each one of our Make Travel Matter experiences featured on our trips is tied directly back to supporting the United Nations goals for sustainable development as well.
That's great. Yeah, I love that. And actually, we should probably rewind first too. So, can you let everyone know who may not be familiar with the TTC Tour Brands, what you all are about, what are your different brands, what type of travel you do, etc.?
100%, yes. So the Travel Corporation Tour Brands is made up of 6 of our guided vacation brands. We offer guided vacations for any and every type of traveler, whether you are traveling on a budget, whether you're looking for something really high end, or anything and everything in between. There are so many benefits to taking a guided vacation. I've traveled with many of our different brands over the years. And I think that it's really great to know that there's always a brand that fits what I'm looking for in my vacation. And it's easy for me. It's easy for me to be able to book a guided vacation, and I really just have to show up and have a good time. Everything's taken care of for me. So as a former travel advisor, I used to love selling guided vacations for my clients because I knew that they were going to be looked after and taken care of on their vacation. And it was easy for me as well.
Yeah, no, that's completely accurate. When we were introducing all of our advisors here at the Wander Network to the Travel Corporation brands, and we were talking about guided vacations, I was letting them know everything about them, because a lot of people don't have experience, I feel like, doing guided vacations. But once you go on that first one, you're like, oh my gosh, this is so much easier. You're like, I should have been doing this the entire time. And Amber, I think you experienced that when you just previously went to Peru, because that was your first guided vacation, right?
Correct. Yes. I've always been the type where you have to figure out all the logistics. You're the one carrying all the bags once you arrive, which can
Yeah.
be pros and cons. There's a lot of you want to go on a vacation, but then when you have to do all of that, there's a little bit of work involved. When you go guided, all of it's hands free. You show up and they just have it figured out for you, which is so much nicer. And they teach you things that you might not even known about, right? So you're not missing out on something very important during your time there.
Yeah, yeah, I agree 100%. And it goes back to that luggage. For me, that was the biggest thing, to be able to not have to lug your luggage around, because it's not easy in other countries when you're traveling to lug your luggage around. It's really not, especially over in Europe. You've got those cobblestone streets. I mean, there have been times I've looked like a fool in, I think it was Budapest, and I was just like, oh my God, everybody was looking at me. I have two suitcases like blah, 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 down the cobblestone streets. And I was like, this is a joke. Like, I look so American right now.
I think we've all been there. Yeah. And I think one of my favorite things about guided vacations is what you get out of it. I think, like, on that same point of, once you go on a guided vacation,
Mhm,
because you see this incredible value that you get out of it. These places that might not have even been on your radar to visit, that you get to see and discover along the way. And the people you get to meet and the enriching experiences you get to have, you just can't compare it to anything you can create on your own.
mhm.
And I
Yeah.
like that you use the word value, because that's something that we've talked to the travel agents about. And even when you guys speak to your clients, what are the value points of booking with one of our preferred partners, such as TTC? And we've listed some of the values already. You're taking that ease, or that stress, I should say, off of the client, and you're handling all these specs, and you're working with a company that specialize in these areas in the different destinations. So that's already a stress factor off of the client's plates. And sometimes they don't even realize all of this until they're in destination, and they're like, oh, yeah, I could have probably avoided this in booking through a travel partner, a
Mhm,
trusted travel partner, and an agent. So I know we're going to talk
mhm.
more about the advantages of booking with our partners as well, but I had to make
Mhm.
that little plug.
And our sustainable partners, the ones that choose
Yes.
sustainability, like the
Yes.
TTC brands, which is great. And speaking of sustainability, so I know when we talk about it, we talk about, minimizing environmental impact, supporting local communities, talking about cultural heritage. In what ways do you see the different TTC tour brands do that on your guided tours?
So I think when I think of our guided vacations, local is one of the first things that comes to mind. We're making a positive impact on all of the places that we go, all of the local economies. We're supporting local businesses through the experiences that we provide for our guests, and we're connecting them with the local people. So you're making a positive impact while you're also getting to gain a deeper sense of appreciation by learning through the eyes and the ears of the local people about their ways of life, helping preserve their culture. Um, so it really just brings so much more, a deeper sense of appreciation to your travel experiences by getting to interact with the local people. On Trafalgar, we connect you with local people through our Be My Guest experience, where you're welcomed into the home of a local, whether that looks like a castle or maybe it's a sustainable farm, where you're learning all about their locally grown produce and that sort of stuff, and you get to have an amazing farm to table meal. We do that in Maui and so many of our other destinations that we travel to, but that's really something that's ingrained in all of our vacations, is connecting with the local people and supporting local economies. So we're ensuring we make a positive impact everywhere we go.
Hmm.
I
Yeah.
love that. I think that's so
Yeah.
important.
It is. Yeah. And it's getting more and more important as well with the younger generations that are now growing older, like us, millennials and Gen Z, having those sustainable options, or learning the cultural heritage, going and touring a farm. Like, that's one of my favorite things to do when I travel personally, is I love to go see how they produce or work their lands, locally, and especially for different countries, which is great. And now, Amber, on your Peru fam, you had the chance to meet with a local and experience the sustainability kind of in action. So can you talk on that as well?
We actually got to do this a couple of times throughout our week in Peru, the various different areas. One of them, when we were in one of the towns in the Sacred Valley, we were able to go into Miss Rosa's home, where you can kind of see what it looked like to live even 7 generations ago. That's how long this home has been in her family, of how the Incas lived back in the day. They have, one room that houses where they sleep, where their Livestock lives with them, where they eat, where they cook. All of it's all in one room, basically. So that was really cool to kind of step back in time a little bit and see how it's so well preserved, how they even live today. So that was a really, really neat cultural experience. We even got to go to another area in the Sacred Valley where we went to a taste local food from the area, empanadas. It was actually owned and operated by a female. Her name is Miss Ernestina. So we got to learn about how to make empanadas, get our hands dirty and make our own empanadas, cook them, and then eat them for ourselves, which they were all excellent. There was a sweet and salty option. So we got to try both, but both of those were really, really neat opportunities.
That's really
So, you
cool.
know,
Yeah,
we're
that
all
is.
about women-owned businesses too. We're all about that. So I
Yes.
love to hear that. And I will say there's just something too about speaking with a local, especially an ancestral person of the soil. And that's something that's super important to me. I'm from the Virgin Islands originally. I'm a fourth generation Virgin Islander. And we speak about how do we, or having conversations about how do we authentically showcase our culture, our heritage to the traveler, so that they can understand more of where we come from, the diversity, why we do what we do, traditions, history. It's just all really, really amazing experiences to have when you're traveling.
Yeah, when I have those experiences when I'm traveling, that's when I feel like I'm at my happiest, if that makes sense. Like,
Yeah,
it's when you're really getting to know the locals and and especially if they invite you into their home, it's just such an incredible experience and a very humbling experience too, to
yeah,
see a lot of times how everyone else lives outside of the US as well. That's a
yeah.
very unique experience as
And I
well.
think
So,
it creates to a sense of camaraderie between the local community and the
mhm,
traveler,
mhm.
because from a local point of view, like, okay, well, they're coming here and they want to learn about us. They're enjoying themselves, of course, and everything that the land has to offer, but they're
Mhm.
also willing to learn about us.
Mhm.
And that, I think that gives a sense of respect as well between the community and the traveler.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I agree. So what different sustainable, and we've kind of talked on this already, Kelly on the left. I don't know if you guys are all on the but what different sustainable tour options do you offer with the TTC brands? I know we've touched on a
Yeah.
few, like you mentioned the Be Our Guest with
Yeah.
Trafalgar. What else do you all offer?
So, what you really want to look for is our Make Travel Matter experiences. And
Mhm.
we have Make Travel Matter experiences on over half of our itineraries for all of our tour brands worldwide. So, when you think of those Make Travel Matter experiences, one of what comes to mind for me, one of my favorite Make Travel Matter experiences was when I was in Italy. We went to a town called Perugia and we met a woman named Marta, and we learned all about this ancient form of weaving that had been in her family for hundreds of years, generations and generations. And it's this ancient form of loom weaving. And it was fascinating to learn about and to actually watch her in action, because seeing what the finished product looks like and seeing what goes into this and the machinery that they use, it's just incredible. Like, you just have this really deep sense of appreciation for what goes into making this fabric. And but what was even more valuable was to hear from Marta, because when we started working with her, she was worried that that ancient form of weaving was going to die with her. She didn't have the resources to be able to continue on. And that's why through our Make Travel Matter experiences and helping provide funding that was needed for her to be able to hire on additional staff and train them on this form of weaving, so that this tradition can be continued and carried out for years to come. And when you listen to Marta speak about it, the gratitude that she has and the way that she talks about how I would never be able to have everything that I have and continue this without this company. The gratitude that she has for us for helping support her and make that happen for her, it's just really humbling. And it really just makes you feel good about being there. It was such an incredible experience. It really just blew me away. So those are the sorts of experiences that you will have in our Make Travel Matter. And that's, of course, just one from Italy. But think about making a positive impact on the land that you're visiting as well. In Switzerland, we introduce our guests to a beekeeper, and they learn all about like pollen preservation in Geneva County and what goes into that. So there's a lot of different ways that you can make a positive impact where you go. On our Cost Saver Bali, we take our guests to learn all about coral preservation, and they have the opportunity to actually adopt coral. So the staff will actually plant a piece of coral in their name, and they learn what goes into regenerating coral, and all about the life of the coral reefs and what goes into preserving that. So there's a lot of different elements to making a positive impact on the people and the places that we visit.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And I know like we were even when we were talking about this podcast yesterday, we were talking about, oh, like what, destinations can we mention that are like sustainable? So if somebody wants to travel sustainably, where can they go? But it's becoming almost a worldwide trend now, this sustainable tourism. So anywhere you go, you can make an impact, kind of how you were describing with all of your different examples. And then what was the one example you told me to about someone's roof? I think it was.
Yes, so that was Marta. Sorry, I
That
left
was
that part
Mar
of
I
the
thought that
story
was.
out.
Yeah,
So
I was like,
yes,
I think it
there
was.
was the roof of her business had collapsed.
Oh,
So essentially she thought that was it. This is the end. I'm never going to be able to fix this or afford to fix this, or like this is the end of my business. And we were able to help fund that to be able to replace her entire roof and get her business up and operating and functional again as well. So that was another element to our story with the lovely Marta.
yeah. No, I
So
love that.
after this podcast, I'm going to need to get with Kelly and we need to figure out how to get you to St. Thomas because you need to implement with TTC all of this now.
Yeah.
But seriously, and this is something that I mentioned with Kelly and Shannon and Amber yesterday, especially Marta's story about the weaving. That is so near and dear to me because we are experiencing, and the conversation piece has been started quite a few times about how do we preserve those pieces of skill sets so they don't die with that generation. And basket weaving in particular, and hat weaving, that stems from throughout the Caribbean, but from St. Bart's as well, where my ancestors are from. My dad is from there, my grandparents. How do we keep that tradition alive? And that's something that I know multiple people have looked into. Do we create a basket weaving, a hat weaving class for tourists, for travelers? When they come, they get to have that hands-on experience with an older generational Virgin Islander. So that, I mean, that is definitely moving for me. And it's something that is so worthwhile to keep alive. It's crucial to keep those skill sets alive, so that that history doesn't die with that generation. So I'm
Mhm.
so glad you touched on that. That's so important.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. And I'm sure like all of us, anything hands-on that I can do when I'm traveling, I want to do it. Like you mentioned the empanadas making and the hands-on things you can do in like Bali with the coral reefs. And I mean, it's just anything like that. We're all about it. So it's yeah. One thing I do want to touch on, because I know we had mentioned this yesterday, we weren't even going to talk about this. And then we were like, we need to mention this because I feel like there's a common misconception of people thinking that it costs more money to travel sustainably or to take part in sustainable tourism, when in fact it doesn't. So, can you mention, like, in what ways, like, TTC just incorporates that into the tours you've already created and how it doesn't, costs much more and everything.
Yeah, I think that that's such a good point because it's almost like, when you're grocery shopping, all of the healthy food is, of course, more expensive. So you have to pay more to eat
Guilty.
healthier. And,
I'm like, oh, I'm
and
that typical millennial where if it says like organic on it, I'm like, perfect, here
yeah,
we go.
exactly. So, like, and so many things work like that where you have to pay more to get something better. So I think it's just a misconception that if you want to travel sustainably, that you're going to have to pay more to do it. And it's just not the case. I know that we talked about the value of taking a guided vacation because it does offer an incredible value. And our Make Travel Matter experiences are built into our tours. So it is literally just something that's already included in your vacation. So it's not anything that you have to pay extra or like an optional excursion or anything like that. It's built into your experience and you're making a positive impact while you're doing it.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
great that it's already like pre-built in because I know sometimes with guided tours, in Cost Saver's a little bit more like that. You can pick and choose
Yeah.
what you do. But with them already being built into a lot of them, that's really great. That's, that makes a huge difference as well. So yeah, that's we wanted to touch on that just because I do feel like it is a common misconception that like, oh, sustainable tourism, I'm gonna have to pay more money for some reason when that's usually not the case. So yeah, I'm glad we touched on that as well. um okay, so we talked about some of the top sustainable destinations. What would you say are your most popular tours that you do with TTC?
So of course, Europe is going to be our most popular. We are on 6 continents though. So when it comes to Europe, you've got Italy, of course. Switzerland is huge. So I actually had the pleasure of visiting Switzerland last year when we kicked off our first Sustainable tour. That is with our Trafalgar brand. And we worked with the Swiss Tourism Board because Sustainable is actually the Swiss Tourism Board's benchmark for sustainable travel. So that's sort of their certification of sustainable travel. So it was really exciting to get to work with them on our Contrasts of Switzerland, which is our Sustainable tour. But it's such an incredibly sustainable destination in general. Everything is so clean. And train travel is huge. So our Contrast of Switzerland, we are traveling by rail as well. And that one I also mentioned earlier, we include a Make Travel Matter experience where we introduce our guests to a beekeeper and they get to learn all about, pollinators and what goes into that as well. So it's a pretty incredible trip. Of course, it's iconic and gorgeous as well, but definitely a very sustainable destination. But we're all over the world. So as far as other popular destinations that we go to, North America, the national parks. So places right here in our backyard. In Canada, we visit Costa Rica, South America as well. So there's just so many places to go in the world. And we want to make sure that we're making a positive impact everywhere that we take our guests.
Yeah, no, that's great. And it also makes the clients, so the people traveling, feel so much more comfortable too when you're going to a new destination. For me, it was easier to sell the TTC Tour Brands to first timers going to a new country, like first time to Europe. Okay, let's go for 2 weeks. We're going to hit all these major cities. We're going to, do this here and this here. And that made it a lot easier for them. And they felt way more comfortable going with, a group the first time versus just kind of going and showing up and winging it on their own. So I definitely think that's a huge selling point, is the comfortability of going with a group. So you feel a little, did you feel that as well, Amber, when you went to Peru?
Yeah, for sure. So I am the Europe girly. So I've
Mhm.
never been to South America before. So it was like, oh, this is a little intimidating, right? Like I wouldn't be able to tell you what's the best place, blah, blah, blah to go. But going with that guided tour, going with somebody that's from the area to show us the local feels, how to even pronounce things, right? It was very humbling and also very, you could just be relaxed and you felt like, oh, I've lived here for a week now. I feel very
Yeah.
comfortable. I have friends, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. That's one thing
And
that's great
that's
about
one
the group
thing.
travel. Go ahead, Kelly. Yeah. We said the same exact thing. That's why I didn't realize.
I think we talked about this briefly with Amber yesterday, and I wanted to kind of mention that too. Uh, Amber, do you think that some of the experiences that you had on this trip you would be able to get if you did it on your own, or do you
No,
think that poking
absolutely not.
through?
Like being
Right.
able to go
Okay.
on a guided tour, one, it takes time before you go on your trip to plan all this, but to have somebody going ahead and picking, I chose to do an experience called Rainbow Mountain. There is no way you could ever get there on your own. And the fact that you also had a travel guide that knows the area, that knows how to keep you safe, that knows if you're starting to get like altitude sickness, how to help you, how to slow down, how to breathe better, things like that, so you can accomplish the experience you're going to, right? You wouldn't want to go there and not be able to do it because you had a lower quality travel guide or you gave out of oxygen basically in high altitude. So it was really nice to have all of that figured out for you. The driving part, the roads are not of the best quality. So having somebody to get you there safely, if you need to take a nap on the bus while you're going, you can do that because you have a driver taking you.
That's true.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's true.
Awesome.
I never thought of it that way too. You have a lot more like you time to yourself too because other people are taking care of it too. So that's
Right.
really great. Yeah, and you said that was a pretty early wake up call, right? That was like 3:30.
3:30 in the morning. So very, very
Nice. And
And
that
I'm
was one
glad
of
you touched
those
on that too, Shannon, because you
mhm,
get to have, I think there's this misconception as well about guided tours. Like you feel
mhm,
like everybody's watching you and you have no freedom or flexibility. And I don't think that's the case. I think you still have the time to do what you want. It's
mhm,
just more structured.
mhm.
And I could be wrong in describing it that way, but that's just how I see it.
I'm so glad you brought that up, Kelly, because that's such a huge misconception that, oh, somebody's going to be like holding your hand every step of the way and you're not going to have any like, time to yourself or freedom or flexibility. And it's just not the case. I've taken so many guided vacations in my life, and there's always free time built into every itinerary. And now some itineraries are more busy than others. So that kind of goes back to qualifying your clients to what is important to them in this vacation, how many places are they wanting to see, and what's the most important place. If they're worried about having free time, but they're aiming to visit 6 countries in 10 days, then maybe we need to manage their expectations a little bit. Which of these countries is the most important? Maybe we can focus in on one or two of them so you can really spend more time in each place, getting to experience it and having a little more free time as well. We have some leisure paced tours as well for those guests, and some of our brands, especially Insight Vacations and Luxury Gold, our more premium and luxury brands, do have more leisure paced tours where you're spending multiple nights in each place that you visit before you move on. So really giving you that nice relaxed pace to touring and more free time as well. So it really just comes down to, what are your goals in this vacation? What is the most important thing you want to experience, and what are they looking for? And then matching that to the right brand and the right sort of trip itinerary for the guest. And that's something that I know there's a lot of new travel advisors out there in the industry, which is so awesome and I love. I know it can be really overwhelming to learn about all of these different brands and suppliers. So that's why we always really want to encourage everyone to use our sales team, utilize your local sales managers, because they can help you figure out, if you've qualified your client and you've asked them all the questions, you can then come to your local sales manager and say, okay, this is what my client's looking for. What do you have? And we can kind of help you navigate what the best option is for them as well. So that's something, a really important resource to know that's out there for our travel partners.
Yeah, and that's great because you all also assist in helping set up groups as well, which we've been pushing, to set up, hey, build it out, for a year and a half out, build a Europe, guided tour with you all or, anything like that. And they can go to you and be like, okay, I built this out. Now, how can I get the clients to fill it? So what can we do? And you guys can set up local meetings even and everything. So, yeah, for all the travel agents listening, utilize your sales partners, utilize our partners. We establish these partnerships for a reason, and we want to utilize them, the best way possible as well to benefit everybody. So
Hmm.
awesome.
100%.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
love that with TTC, I feel like, and you touched on it already, Kelly, but there's something for every traveler. If this doesn't work, all right, we'll pivot. Let's try this. But I think that you can you can find a trip that suits them the best with all of the different features that you have. You don't have to lock them into one specific thing, and you always have room to say, hey, there's also this, there's also that. Let's try this.
Yeah,
Um,
it's a portfolio of brands. So I think something really important to know is that, your clients could choose a different brand every year depending on what their goals for their vacation are. When I was 23, my goal was to go to Ireland, and none of my friends could afford to go with me. So I booked a Kentucky. And Kentucky is our brand for 18 to 35-year-olds, super social travel, lots of solo travelers. So it was a perfect solo trip for me to take, where I was traveling solo, but once I got there, I met up with the group. I instantly had a bunch of new friends, and it just had the time of my life. Versus, a few years later, I thought I needed to go to Italy. And I was going with my mom, and we chose Trafalgar because there was an amazing leisure paced itinerary called Rome and Tuscan Highlights. And we spent 6 nights in Tuscany, in Montecatini, and did all these day trips out to Pisa, Florence, San Gimignano, Siena, Cinque Terre. And then we started and ended in Rome. So I just really wanted to deep dive into Tuscany, and that was the perfect itinerary. So that was why we chose Trafalgar. We're choosing cost saver Costa Rica for our vacation this year, because it's an amazing itinerary. You spend a few nights in Monteverde, in Arenal, in San Jose. It's a great pace, as well as a great value. And we're saving for a big splurgy honeymoon next year. So it's the perfect year for us to take a cost saver. So there's just a different brand depending on what their needs are. You can just travel within this portfolio, and there's going to be something that fits the need.
Yeah.
To highlight too with TTC, specifically cost saver, because that's who I was with in Peru. Like, you get to choose some of your experiences. So like, you're not always with your entire group. It's smaller groups too throughout the way. But then when you do have that free time, and you may be like, I've never been to Peru before. What do I do? What's a neighborhood outside of where we're staying that's safe to go to, that has maybe food selection that I want to try if I'm a foodie? Your travel director is going to be able to point you in the right direction and nail it. So you're only there for a short amount of time. So having that expert person with you, that's not with you holding your hand every step of the way, is a really nice experience to have.
They're like kind of like shadowing you, like they're there, but they're not there.
Throw something out, they're like,
a little creepy, but
I like to think of them as like that built-in buddy that like they know everybody. They're like your cool friend that like knows everybody and has all the connections. They like know all of the local secrets. They know how to get you into like a restaurant that's hard to get into. They're like your local friend that like, lives there or knows everybody there. And it delivers an incredible value. Whenever we talk to past guests, the first thing I ask them is, how was your trip? And the first thing they tell me every time is, we loved our travel director. So they really are such amazing, unique characters, and they bring so much brightness to the experiences for our guests. And it really just makes the trip for our guests.
I will say that's something I've heard multiple times, that the tour guides with TTC, they're awesome. And that's something I've heard many times. I think it's very true. And just from what I've heard, I mean, they are obviously, if not from the area, very, very well versed in the area, which is super important. And I like that you all, I'm sure, have a process to vet these people before they become guides, and you go through all of that. So you make sure that you're getting someone who you can trust, and who you can trust with groups as well.
Yeah, 100%. They do go through the most rigorous training in the travel industry. So it's a 3-month training on the road. Not everybody makes it. It's pretty intense.
Okay, not everybody makes it 3 months as a travel agent either. So
yeah.
If you made it past 3 months, you're actually doing pretty well. So
that's right.
Amber, you're here to stay. Just you're good. You've made it past that 3-month mark too.
Love it.
I love too that the directors are all locals, right? As well. So I would like to touch on that too, because I love that they're locals to the area. They're really the experts.
Yeah. They might not necessarily be local, like a native local, but
Right.
they live in the
Yeah.
area.
Yeah.
So like they'll live in one of the areas that they go to. For example, in Italy, now they might be local. On my
Mhm.
France tour with Trafalgar, we did have a woman who was from France. So it was
Okay.
awesome. They always speak fluently, like whatever the languages in the countries that you're visiting as well. They'll teach you how to say some really simple phrases as well, which is helpful, how to get to the bathroom or how to ask for the check and those sort of things. But our travel director on my Italy tour, I did 2 Italy tours with our brands. One of them was from Italy, and the other one, he was actually from Chicago, Illinois, but he went to study abroad in Florence and never came home.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
so really,
That happens
it's
with
just
Europe.
cool to, yeah, right.
I can
Um,
attest.
yeah, yeah. So he lived there for many years. He learned the language. He learned about the places, that sort of thing. So they were very specific to the regions that they
Yeah.
do tours because they have to be that resident expert in all the places they take our guests to.
That's great. No, and do they
Absolutely.
ever like get trained on another area? Like let's say, like he's based in Florence. Will he also like what if he gains an interest in like Germany or would
Hmm.
would he have the opportunity to do that as well or
Yeah, they do expand a bit. He expanded into Switzerland as well. So yeah, there's lots of room for growth with the travel directors within our family. A lot of them start as Kentucky travel directors, and
Mhm.
then as they progress through their career, we move them into some of the different brands. So our one travel director for Italy, his name was Giuseppe. He was from Italy, but he started with Kentucky, and he then moved into Cost Saver, Trafalgar, and Insight Vacations. So the
I
longer
love
they're with
that.
the brands, the more opportunity there is to just continue to build and grow. Luxury Gold, being our high end luxury, is all small groups, and instead of a travel director, we call them a travel concierge. So it's a even more elevated role
Yeah.
for our luxury travelers to really make sure that they are picking up on those like the littlest finest details, and really anticipating all of our guests' needs. So they do go through an additional training to be qualified to lead our luxury gold tours, but it's definitely a great way to work within the family of brands.
Yeah. That's
And
really
I
cool.
mean,
And
I do like, oh, Shannon, go ahead.
you're good. Did you say go ahead?
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh,
I'll
okay.
listen to you.
I think I said it again at the same time as you. We do this a lot when it's just us two even doing meetings. Where, um, one thing I really liked about the travel director is with traveling with food allergies is they make me feel a lot more comfortable
Mm,
when I'm going to places because they can properly communicate it. Whereas if like I'm by myself or on an FIT and I go into this, cute little restaurant in Italy and I try to tell them I have a shellfish allergy and they're like, what? Like I'm like, oh gosh, this is gonna be we're winging it. We're winging it on whether or not. And that has not gone well before.
Cross your
I have
fingers.
gone to the hospital in
you
Austria
have an
because of that.
EpiPen.
So yeah, I know. I'm like, oh boy. So that was one thing on my guided tour that I felt so much more comfortable traveling internationally with that because they could just any restaurant we went to or even if I was going off to eat by myself they could still properly communicate that for me and I'm like okay cool I'm good to go then and they're like yeah you're good I talked to them so I'm like okay sweet.
I suffer from the
Yeah.
same allergy, and
Uh-huh.
being in Lima on the water,
Uh-huh.
shellfish, that is a thing that you have to worry about.
Yep.
And ceviche, that's a big dish over there. It is in the United
Mm,
States as well. We make it a little different than them. Here
Mhm.
we do have the shellfish in it, so I can never eat it. But
Mhm.
in Peru, you can have it because they don't put shellfish.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Mm.
good to know.
See,
Fun fact.
was it your director who told you that, or did you figure
Yes,
that?
yes.
See, there we go.
Yams, and they were like, we don't know. But the travel director did know. But everybody was like triple checking to make sure for me. So
Yeah,
I got to worry
That
about
is
going to the
awesome.
hospital.
Yeah,
yeah,
that's
that's
great.
great. Yeah, see,
And I
and
want
that's where I
to
just
add
feel
too that
comfortable.
we touched on, and Kelly mentioned too, just even going back to the travel directors and how much training they go through and their experience. I like that we talk about the local directors as well, because not only when we travel do we find ways to give back to the local community, but I feel like when a company like TTC comes into a destination and you're giving these opportunities to locals, you're obviously opening the job market for them. And with a lot of these destinations, you know, tourism is their bread and butter. So to be able to bring that community in to your company and what you're doing, I think also gives them more of a sense of pride in where they're from, because then they get to showcase their home to visitors. But it's also, like I said, generating income and business for the community. So I really do like that feature too.
Yeah.
100%. We have local hosts on all of our tours in almost every city that we visit. You're meeting a new, different local person that's from that city. So it's more than just your travel director. You really do get to meet different local people and different like elements and aspects of the trip everywhere that we go.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think I told Kelly yesterday when all of us were talking, when I first started in the industry and I started doing some certifications, one of the first ones that I did was with TTC, and I learned about the Be My Guest experience. And that's when like I fell in love with the brand. So I haven't traveled on with TTC yet, but that's one of my goals for the future, because even that, the Be My Guest experience seems so cool. You get to sit, break bread with a local community, and you know, you get to go. I think I even saw one in Italy where the person takes them to the market. You're picking the produce, you're picking everything with them, and then you're creating that drink. So Kelly just sparked up. So I know
Yes, I did. You got me all excited. That's actually like my favorite experience. That was on our Roman Tuscan highlights. So that was actually one of the reasons that I chose that tour with Trafalgar was you spend a day with a chef in Tuscany and you go to the Sant'Ambrogio market in Florence, and it's, gosh, so incredible, like nothing you'll ever find here. And you just wish you could take the whole market home with you because it's amazing. And you get a list of like ingredients. You get broken up into groups, and they gave us euros, and they had us go shopping for all the ingredients we needed to make our lunch. And then we went up into the hills of Tuscany where the chef's restaurant was. It was completely closed to the public. It was only open exclusively for our group. We had a nice little blue Prosecco toast, as they do produce all of their own wine right there as well. And then we had just one glass to start before it was time to put us to work, as the chef said. So then we got hands-on making our own pasta. We learned how to make Italian bread salad. And when all of the food prep was done, then it was time for wine tasting. And I always say I use the term tasting lightly because if you met a wine you liked, you could have as much as you wanted.
I was gonna say, this is Italy wine tasting. So
That's
this is,
right.
basically you're just drinking wine for a long time.
Exactly. Precisely. But it was just honestly like one of my favorite travel memories. We had the best day, my mom and I and all of our new friends on our Trafalgar trip. It was a gorgeous day. We were set up outside. It was in the 70s. It was just a wonderful day, sharing food and wine and laughter. And it just was such an incredible experience. I never could have created that experience on my own. So it just was such an incredible experience that I'll just cherish forever.
Yeah, no, that sounds amazing. And immediately when you said like they handed out the like ingredient cards for you to go get, like my first thought was like Amazing Race. I'm like, oh, I would have to do it the fastest. I would be like, let's go, everybody. What do we get? You go here. You go here. Like,
A
because
little
I want to be
competitive.
on this show. Yeah, yeah. I'd be like, we're gonna be the first group to get all of our ingredients. Let's go.
Yeah.
So just
So
out of curiosity, do they give you all like a little cookbook to go with, or anything that you can, you know, go back to those like recipes and really dive in and try to make it yourself when you're back home?
Yeah. They did give us, if you ask for it, they'll give it to you. So I asked for it, and really it was very simple. So there was 3 ingredients to make the pasta. It was the flour, and there's a specific type of flour that they use to make pasta, and then an egg and a little bit of salt, and that's it. So it really is
Very
like
simple.
so simple. Yeah. But even on another experience I had was dining in the home of a local in Rome on Insight Vacations, and you met this family. The mom was the chef. The dad was serenading us with music as we came in, and then the son and the nephew were kind of helping kind of get all the food out to us, and we had this delicious multi-course meal that she had prepared fresh just for us. and it was just so delicious. We asked her if we could have the recipe, so she let us add her on Instagram, and then she shared the recipe with us, so we were able to share it with like the rest of our group too. But
That's really
yeah,
sweet.
yeah, so they're pretty nice. They were generous to share their recipes.
That
That's
is
good.
really
I know
nice.
some people are like lock and key on their recipes. It's not
Mhm.
going anywhere. But at the
Especially
same
in Italy,
time,
right?
yeah,
They're like,
absolutely.
yeah,
But you have
no,
to
this
be
is
willing to share because how do you, again, when we talk even about like going back to the basket weaving, like how do you pass on those recipes if you don't tell anybody? So there comes a point where you have to be like, well, okay, let me suck up my pride and here's a recipe.
Yeah,
See if I
that's
can
right.
deal with it.
that's funny. No, I love that. That's great. I want to transition over Amber into talking a little bit more about your fam experience. Just a couple additional questions, or if you want to just describe your experience, because this was your very first fam trip. And for those of you who may be listening who are considering being a travel agent or who are potential clients who want to book with Amber, and go to Peru or on any of the TTC brands, where was I going with that? I'll edit this part because I forgot exactly where I was going with that. I was like, yeah, if you can just describe your experience. So, a fam trip is a familiarization trip for travel agents. This is where you kind of go on like a work trip and you're going to experience the brand in order for yourself to sell it better to your clients. So, what was your very first fam trip experience like as a brand new agent? You just joined in, I believe it was March you joined, and you already went on your first fam, which is incredible. So if you just want to share your experience on that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I obviously was excited to be accepted in this fam, specifically because one, I've always wanted to go. That's a selfish personal reason. But two, because I definitely don't know South America. I definitely didn't know Peru. So being able to experience it with one, a travel director helping me learn things the correct way, not just the way maybe I think is the right way. Um, it makes you understand how to know all the different towns that you should recommend to, restaurants, places to go, the cultural experiences, especially like the Make Travel Matter, right? There's even one we went to a home of ladies that takes the alpaca hair, right, and weaves it into thread to make the textiles and the goods that we can bring home. The dyes that they make all the colors out, it comes from a beetle on a cactus, actually, that they squish and then
Oh,
use
wow.
things from the local environment, Mother Nature, to make the different colors. And we were able to buy some things from that to help support them and their children, right, in the home. But then be able to bring that home and always remember Peru when you come back home. Um,
Love that.
but being able to learn it, feel more comfortable and confident now to sell it to my new clients, to send my parents on a trip because I know that they're going to be safe. It's very nice to be familiar with it from the true experts and locals that live in the area.
Hmm. Yeah, and that's what I was going to ask about next too. Is now that you've experienced, especially specifically Cost Saver, or you see, how a guided tour can run. Do you feel like it's easier now for you to sell it? You have more talking points. You can share your personal experiences.
Yes, absolutely. uh, Basically experience it firsthand I'm able to now confidently talk about like this is 100% the way you should do it because I didn't have any hiccups, right? And I'm doing this for work, but somebody that is a client of mine, they're going on vacation, they want it to run smoothly, they don't want to think about all the logistics, they are taking time off from work, right, or taking away from raising their kids, they want to experience that best 7, 10, 14 days that they choose,
Mhm.
with whoever they're planning on going on vacation with.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's great. And like you said too, just the way you're able to explain it now better and share your personal stories, because I feel like when you are working with clients, when you have those personal stories, those are the absolute best, which is great. So any of you listeners who are out there who may be interested in planning a trip with TTC, you can just go to thewandernetwork.com, fill out our travel request form, and you can simply put in the details that you would like to do a TTC tour, and we are glad to assist you. Or you can email Amber directly. Amber, you can plug in your email here. What's your email?
Amber at wanderless-way.com.
Perfect. So you can email Amber directly too. And we are happy to get you set up as well. Kellie, do you have anything else to add on the TTC brands or sustainability in general?
I really think that we covered so much important factors.
Yeah.
I'm very happy with the different experiences that we touched on and how TTC gives back. I think, yeah, I can't think of anything else
Yeah.
at this
Yeah, no,
point.
I'm glad that we talked about everything that we did because and like we said, when you are choosing to travel sustainably, it doesn't have to cost more. And what's great with these guided tours is it's built in. And so if you're going to plan your own FIT trip and you're like, "Oh, I want to do something sustainable though, or do a cooking class or meet with a local." It's like, "Oh, now I got to look into that and do the research." Whereas you all already have it set up for us and you all know the best of the best. So,
100%. Couldn't have said it better myself. So, absolutely. One thing I will plug as far as resources for our travel advisors listening out there, be sure that you're on our advisor website. It's agents.ttc.com. That is where you can access every resource you can imagine for TTC Tour Brands. You can view all 6 brands and look at pricing, availability, compare tours, and book online. Also, training, FAM alerts. So that's where you'll find our amazing FAM trips, and maybe you'll get lucky to get on a FAM like Amber did. You can also find more on sustainability as well. So we do have a Make Travel Matter page there as well. So you can learn if you are just so inspired by today's podcast, you want to know more about the cool experiences that we have. We have so much more on each of our Make Travel Matter experiences and how they each experience, how it ties into one of the United Nations sustainability values as well. So tons of resources out there. And as far as consumers as well, you can just see on any of our websites, the Make Travel Matters on every single page that you go to. So if you're just really inspired to see some of these experiences or what they look like, they're everywhere. They're all over the place. But definitely be sure to utilize our amazing travel partners here because they're your experts. There's so much value to booking with a travel agent. I'm a former travel advisor myself, so huge advocate for that. You need somebody looking after you before you travel, and then we're here to look after you while you travel. So
awesome. Yeah, that's a great way to put it. That's an excellent way to put it. And I love the resources on your site as well. If you are a travel agent listening in, I cannot recommend enough just sharing those itineraries. When I would post them on Facebook, that was the most traction I would always get when I would just simply share the route of the itinerary and some example pictures. People ate that up. So definitely utilize all the resources you all have because it's great. So we appreciate that. And anytime one of our supplier partners or these brands, you all have the best resources, it makes our jobs easier on our end too. So thank you for that.
I will say, I will add something actually to scare everyone too. So I just wanted to add that another takeaway from everything we've talked about, which we already know, but when you're curating a trip for your client, just make sure to, sprinkle in as much history and culture throughout the duration of the trip as you can, because I feel like that makes the trip even more memorable. And it really stands out to the traveler and sets it apart from just taking a trip and saying, okay, well, we'll go and we'll have a couple, meals at a couple restaurants versus a true immersive experience with the local community. And also, shameless plug, since we're talking about, yes, of course, you can go to the Wonder Network website and book with Amber or any one of our amazing agents. But if you also want to jump into this dynamic industry and become an agent yourself, you know where to go.
Let us know.
You go to
That
the
is
website.
also thewandernetwork.com. We do it all. Just wait. We're going to. No, I love it. Yeah, absolutely. Because and I'm sure Amber can attest to this, it is an amazing career. to get into, especially with the opportunities that you've already been given as well. I mean, it's truly one of those life-changing careers. At least for me, it was. I'm sure both Kellys can agree, and Amber as well. It is the best career. We may be a little biased, but in my opinion, we have the best career in the world. So I am happy to argue that with anybody who would like to. We're going to change it from a podcast to a debate show for this one. But no, we're excited. So if you all are new listeners, please be sure to hit that subscribe button. We will have episode 2 coming next, where we will be talking with Harmony Mauritius all about the importance of going on fam trips and how to best utilize them for the best return on investment as well, and how to promote them to your clients. So that will be another fun travel agent topic. So, but thanks again. Thanks, Amber. Thanks, Kelly and Kelly. And we appreciate you all. And we will see you all on episode 2.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. Bye. Bye.